I'm really excited to welcome our next guest, Ron. Ron Ben-Zeev, he's a big thinker. That's why I'm excited to kind of bring him on. And he's currently the co-founder and president of the World Housing Solution, a company that manufactures these rapidly deployable and reusable structures for the military, for non-government organizations, and first responders around the world. And speaking of around the world, he's lived and worked, in Africa, Asia, Middle East, Central America, and Europe, and he speaks fluently in 4 different languages. So, what's cool is that, like many entrepreneurs, that I've spoken with, he's one of these guys that he honed his entrepreneurial skills, when he had his first business at the age of 13. And currently he sits on the board of directors of several companies, including the Wharton School iGel. Is that right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and Ideas for Us, which I'm familiar with. He's incredibly involved locally here in Orlando. He's the co-founder of the local chapter of Startup Weekend, which took off on its own. TEDx Orlando, the Kauffman Foundation's 1 Million Cups events. He's a huge starter, and if his life wasn't busy enough, he spends his time between working at his companies and speaking at engagements and consulting with clients. It's too much to keep up with. So I appreciate you fitting us into your schedule, Ron.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much, Joel.
What I'm really hoping that everybody can get out of this is to see the brilliance that you've put into a lot of conversation that I know you've had with a lot of people that we know. But the biggest question that everybody has is whenever they have this one good idea, they call it their $1 million idea. How do they validate that idea?
That's always actually it's more than $1 million now, right? It's the $1 billion question.
Right.
Everybody sees those amazing unicorns out there and goes, "Oh, I've got this. I'm going to do this, and I've got the ability to handle all that." The reality is it's very complex, as you very well know. And the first thing is look around you and who do you know? And who are you connected with? And once you figure out that piece, is go out and talk to them. Is how much do people care about your solutions? Because the reality, if your solution doesn't solve their problems, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You're just going to be spinning your wheels and wasting your time. So find out, the reality is that we don't just start the other way around, is what keeps you up at night, Mr. or Mrs. Customer? People say to me, my grandma loves my idea. I'm like, that's great. But if it's only your grandma, it's not a big deal. If it's every grandma out there, that's an awesome thing, right? So go find out who cares, how big is your market, and is your idea, suggestion, thought, product, is it better, faster, cheaper? Whatever one of those 3 or all of those 3, then you may have something.
So how do you get that feedback from potential customers and not just friends? How do you beat that street?
It's the most uncomfortable thing that we can do as entrepreneurs, is go out and find out if anyone gives a shit about your baby, right? Is talk to someone and say, hey, does this resonate with you? And I don't want the, oh, what an awesome idea, this is great, oh, this is lovely, Ron, you're onto something. Because what I've learned now is when someone says to me that, I say, great, how many do you want? How many are you gonna buy? If it's a great idea, you like it, how many are you gonna buy? You go, no. Oh, so you mean it's not that good of an idea? You're just placating me. You're trying to make me feel good? Don't. I'd rather get to no, as in, no, this sucks. No, I don't like it. No, your idea is horrible, right? Rather than, oh, this is so great. It's so cute. Go. No, don't do that. I want you. Get me to fail as quickly as I possibly can. Iterate, pivot, modify, change, so I can get to the point where I can actually get customers, make a sale. If you say you like it, you're gonna buy it. If you're not buying it.
So you push for that end result. I think that's one of those things where a lot of people stop right before the goal line, and it takes a special person to push beyond.
It's uncomfortable. I mean, let's face it, right? The moment someone says this is awesome, you're just gonna go home and go, hey, honey, guess what? I talked to Joel, and Joel said it was awesome. Great, and then what? Are you gonna pay the mortgage with awesome? You're not. You're gonna pay the mortgage with sales. Get to sales. or get to know, here's why this solution doesn't solve my problem, or not in a way that makes sense to me, right? If it's a problem worth solving, the customer is solving it somehow today. Is your method better, faster, cheaper, whatever?
Mm-hmm. You know, and I think you touched on one of those things, that uncomfortableness. You know, one of my questions are, what are the most common mistakes that new entrepreneurs make when developing and, you know, following through with that idea? Because I think you touched on one of them there.
You know, it's a catch-22. People say that you don't get too passionate, right? Because your idea may suck, you're going to have to pivot, change, or iterate. But at the same time, if you don't have the passion to begin with, it's not going to carry you through the heartache and the despair. Because don't get, you know, it's not peaches and roses out there. It is mind-blowing. It is agonizing. It is, you know, if your better half is not in it with you, you're going to be suffering on your own. And I don't make it sound like it's a horrible thing. But in a lot of ways, people talk about founder depression, about startup depression, because it's true, it exists. If you go out and Google, you'll find out how many people that are successful today talk about how they slogged through it and were depressed and had issues, but found people to help them. So that goes to what we just talked about, is surround yourself with mentors, people you trust, people you believe in and believe in you, that will give it to you the way you need to hear it. You know, you need to be cajoled sometimes, and sometimes you just got to get your nose rubbed into it and say, look, it sucks, it's ugly, it's uncomfortable, it's too expensive, you're not solving the problem in a way that moves the needle. So what are you going to do to do that, right? And that's really part of that process. That's
cool. Yeah, I think you're right on the money there. But one question that one of our members had, you know, really comes through, where, you know, how do you increase the creativity and the productivity to think outside the box? Because everybody always says, you know, you got to think outside the box. You got to come up with something different. You got to pivot. You know, what kind of tools have you experienced that you use to maybe facilitate that a little bit better?
You know, I would say to you that there's probably more people right now outside the box than inside the box, right? So when you hear this, I'll tell you, I'll give you one of our things is we're solving a very specific, very unique niche issue. It turns out that at first we thought it was very niche-y. Mind you, it's a big niche. It's the U.S. government. It's working with the U.S. military. But it turns out the NGOs have the same problems. Non-governmental organizations, first responders, disaster relief, are in the same space in a slightly different way than we thought originally. So we're trying to solve things, and what we've done is we've looked at adjacent industries and seen how do they solve this problem today, and how can I incorporate lessons they've learned so that way I can shortcut my time, because time is money, time is expensive, R&D is an arduous, expensive process. So how can I learn from others and squeeze that in and bring something from another place that others may not have thought about? And it's connecting the dots. If people say to me, what are you kind of sort of good at, Ron? And I would say I'm pretty good at connecting the dots. It's kind of floating above and saying, oh my gosh, if I can do this, plus this, plus this, it moves the needle, it changes the narrative. And that's what I love about that. And that's really important. So don't stay so narrowly focused on your particular thing, broaden it out. So think about Uber, right? What problem does Uber solve or started solving? So we'll go back and say that, first of all, Uber did not invent the category, right? The company that invented the category, whose name just went out of my mind, went out of business. Uber just did it better. Lyft did it better. But Uber is becoming now actually a last mile kind of delivery system, right? It's not just transporting a human from A to B, it's now delivering food, it's delivering other things. So that piece is kind of like finding other ways to get an ROI on the investment, which is in their case a technology investment, and connecting the dots, they're connecting the vehicle with this. And as they're getting better and faster and incorporating other technologies, i.e. self-driving cars, the next thing you'll see is the elimination of the driver and just the connection of a transportation system with an app that connects whatever needs to be moved from here to there. That's where they're fitting in. So they Lyft and other companies.
Yeah, there's something that you mentioned before, on solving problems, not pushing solutions. So when you're coming at a problem like this, why is it so important for somebody to really consider, solving the problem, not just, making a fix for the solution?
It's such an arduous process to think that nobody cares about your solution, right? And I harp on that all the time. It's people care about their problems, not about their solutions. And if you go back in the history of humankind, every invention that's come up has solved a problem with, in my mind, the exception of one, which is going to the moon. That wasn't a problem. Someone came up with a way. Let's go back. It wasn't really a problem. I have to be, that's not something that humankind was going, today going to the moon sucks. How can I do it another way? But look at transportation as a whole. When the car was invented, what problem was it solving? Right? Transportation. What were the other means of transportation at the time? Walking, biking, taking a boat, taking a horse with a carriage, and so on and so forth. Train. So at first, cars sucked at doing that. It really did. And then progressively got better. One thing that very few people realize is that actually at the turn of the century, I don't mean this one, I mean last one, there were more electric cars on the road than petroleum-powered cars.
Really?
Think about that. At the early turn of the century, in the 1900s, there were more electric cars than there were gas-powered cars. But they solved the rechargeable system, so the gas-powered engine took off. And here we are, right? 100 years later, we're back at, electric cars are so awesome. We should think about that and incorporate that. So again, it's how do you solve those particular things? And that's how it goes in. So the problem of transportation was solved through the automobile, the gas-powered motors, and it continues to evolve. In our case, is always sit. One of the questions I love to ask a customer is, what keeps you up at night? Right? If you had a magic wand, you could solve one problem. What would that problem be? I may be spot on. I may be completely off the mark, but I may learn something, and I will learn something that may make me go back and go, I think I can solve that problem. And if I can solve it, how big is that market?
Right. And how do you go about understanding the size of a market? Research. That's a big question, isn't it?
It's the one grandma versus all grandmas, dilemma. It's people say if I make shoes, there's 7 billion people, most of them have 2 feet. Boom, there you go. I'm going to sell. No, you're not. It's how big is the market? What are the barriers to entry? You're going to hear that in launching a business and dealing with entrepreneurship and if you watch Shark Tank and The Profit and all these other amazing shows, The Profit in particular, to me is a brilliant TV show. Is how do I get in? Who is blocking me from getting in? So let's go back for a moment. Google, right? Everybody knows about Google. But when Google came and was born, they were competing against Explorer, right? Safari, Firefox a little bit at the beginning, and there were a few other browsers that were ahead of Google. People said, hey, how are you going to stand out? What's going to make you special? How are you going to solve these problems? And progressively, they had to figure out how to do it, and they had a cool algorithm and some money behind it, and started pushing through. So those are all the things that kind of fit together and allows you to figure out the best way to solve this. And now it kind of dovetails into, it's not just finding the problem to solve. It's coming up with a great idea.
Yeah.
So executing.
And so if you have that great idea and you're executing on it, and you need to change it, one of our members asked a great question. Do you need a business plan? Like, is that important now? Are we past that where, you need to be more flexible than, going into a bank with a business plan that's, as thick as a phone book?
Well, as you know, I do work with the military, and one time we were talking about planning. And there was a whole conversation, and one of them leaned forward and said, General Custer had a plan. So plans are important. You have to have a vision. So I would change the term a little bit differently and say, what is the vision? Okay. When you grow up, where do you want to be, or what do you want to be? How big of a company do you want to have? who is your customer base, and who are your competitors, and who are you going after? I'd always talk about your exit strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Google had to answer that question. Facebook had to, Uber had to answer that question. Microsoft and Apple had to answer that question, right? They don't answer that question anymore. Right. They are the strategy, right? So Amazon had to answer that question, right? Richest man in the world. So when you look at this, is you have to have a vision, you have to have a path, but you have to have flexibility. Because no plan survive first contact with the enemy, right? It's an adage of the US, of the military. Every military is at some point you're going to have contact. Things are going to change. Mm-hmm. You're going to have the ability to be flexible enough to change and react, right? Blockbuster, remember them?
Yeah, I do.
Remember them? Blockbuster had an opportunity to buy Netflix.
Really?
Really? They didn't, right? Xerox invented the mouse, not Apple. Right? You know what to do with it, right? So it's not the ideation, it's the execution. Mm-hmm. And the execution requires vision and a plan.
Now, when I know you have such a great background with the lean business model and with doing Startup Weekend, when building teams, you must have mentored hundreds of teams. So let's say somebody's getting started and putting together their team. Who should they have on their team before starting the company? How did they go about that initial team building step?
So find the biggest thing is introspection, right? What do you suck at, A, or B, what do you hate to do, right? Mm-hmm. Two important things. Is if you're a numbers guy and you hate biz dev, guess what? You better find someone who's really good at biz dev, because if you hate it, you're not going to like to do it. You're not going to want to do it. You're going to find any excuse not to do it. In my case, they're inverse, right? I'm better at the biz dev side and telling the story than I am the nitty gritty of doing my spreadsheets and everything else. Can I do them? Yes, I can do them. Do I get up in the morning and go, woo, spreadsheet day? No, it's not spreadsheet day. I know that's not what turns me on. So I need to find people that bolster my weaknesses and plug in the holes, so that way I know that I have a complete, package together. And it's a hit and miss. Yeah. Absolutely hit and miss. I've done this multiple times, and sometimes I've hit it out of the park, and sometimes I thought I had the winning horse and not at all, right? So the key, and I'm sure everybody's heard it before, is hire slow, fire fast. Yeah. And find the right people around you to help you get you to the finish line. But if it's not right, say goodbye soon.
Yeah, more so than people, you need a lot of resources as well. Besides capital. What kind of resources would a budding entrepreneur or a budding kind of startup, what should they really look into?
Again, look at your network. Someone asked me recently, if you could go back, what would you do better? I would say network better. I'm not bad at it, but the opportunities I had early on in my life, anything. Right. So if you could go back and go, ooh, can I redo something? I would network better. And start looking at who's around you. So recently an MBA student came and met with me, has a really cool idea and wanted to kind of figure out how to bring it to the market. And he said, well, I don't know anyone in this industry. And I said, well, how many people do you know on LinkedIn? I said, I have whatever, X number of hundreds of contacts. I said, have you looked at their contacts? Have you looked at them? Then looked at their contacts. Who did they know that they can introduce you to? He goes, no, I didn't. I'm like, okay, it's not that common. Now we have tools we didn't have 10 years ago. Right? You're 1 or 2 degrees away from the person that can unlock this for you or tell you what you're doing right or wrong. I said, look, go look on my LinkedIn profile. See who do you think can help move the needle for you. Right. Let's see if I can connect you with them and get you to have a conversation. So that's really the key is going back to, people talk about the board of directors. That's important. The board of advisors is crucial. There's a board of advisors are people that may not be as vested in it, but can still give you the straight answer, hopefully, and connect you with people and open doors. That's an important thing. So who's your mentor? Who, family, friends, teachers, professors, work. who do you know?
Yeah. And I think you touched on a really interesting thing. You said when you're kind of bringing a product, through, or bringing a concept through, you really gotta tell through a story. So when you're talking about starting that conversation, how do you tell somebody about your vision, about your story? How do you really sell by using that?
I think it will go full circle straight back to the beginning. People don't care about your solutions; they care about their problems.
Right.
The first way you start the conversation is, is this a problem for you? The answer is no. It's awesome. You know why? Because you save yourself a boatload of time versus sitting there and trying to spew for half an hour about how amazing whatever your product is, finding out that the end is like, yeah, really, it's not my problem. Oh, crud. Right? So what do? So you start with what keeps you up at night. What problem do you face on a day-to-day basis? And oh, by the way, that's amazing you should say that, Joel, because guess what? My company has just developed a widget, an idea, a software, blah, 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 that will solve that particular problem, right? So listen and then talk. People talk about B2B and B2C, right? We've all heard about that. And a long time ago, I've been harping on this and saying it's neither B2B nor B2C, it's H to H. It's human to human, right? Wherever they are, people bring their likes, dislikes, problems, challenges with them. And it doesn't matter what role they're in. I used to joke and said, unless it's B to G, right, B to government, and it's a different story. And it's not true. It's still H to H. And so I got my butt on the plane, start traveling around to meet with people who are facing those challenges on a day-to-day basis. Stagnated. The moment I stopped my preconceived ideas and talked to those folks, my growth went skyrocketed.
Yeah.
And that's really the key. So listen first, then talk.
And can you give me an example of maybe how to use a story during that conversation? Let's say that they're on board, they have the same problem that you had, and you've come up with the solution. How do you best convey that to them?
So when you're looking at the story, people talk all the time about it. It's about the why, right? It's not about what you do or how you do it, but more why you do it. So what drives you? What are you passionate about? And that comes through in the conversation. People will resonate with that piece and will believe in you much more so than if you're just sitting there and in a rote manner deliver the reason you need to buy a widget because it's faster. It's here's something that bothered me. Here's something that started with me, and our story, right? And it's all about sustainability. We just saw sustainability. I wasn't moving enough, and the light went off in my office. Oh, there you go. So the light came back on. So about sustainability is what drove us. It's called World Housing Solution, not military amazing solutions, because we wanted to solve a social issue, and that's where we were born. And by luck, we in one way we failed miserably because we didn't break through in a manner we were hoping to in the social world, but we succeeded in the government world. But we're still solving a lot of the same issues: sustainability, low energy consumption. All those things are still good. So the story resonates, and it often starts with that, because people say to me, "What's this world housing thing?" Right? It's not military amazing stuff, right? And so it opens and it starts the conversation, and it creates the human bond, right? Back to human. It's not B2C and B2B. Now, you still need to know your facts. You still need to discuss the ROI.
Of course.
You still need, once you break through and people are interested, all the rest still comes in. But until you get to that point, create a contact, start a conversation.
I think that's some of the best advice. It's really about that human connection, and we see that all the time. And you've seen so many more entrepreneurs kind of rise and come to market than anybody I know. So what are the most common mistakes that you see, new entrepreneurs, budding entrepreneurs, startups, kind of when they're getting their feet under them, where do they screw up and how can somebody avoid that?
Often we don't think what we have is good enough, right? You've heard that, right? It's not good enough. It's not ready. It's not ready. I can't push.
Heard that a million times.
Yep. And often that's exactly the opposite. It's ready. Because guess what? If you think you're the only one with that cool idea, you are dead wrong. Because right now, there's 20 other startups all over the world who are trying to solve that exact same problem. And if you don't execute, you're dead. Now, it doesn't mean that if you're going to push out a boat that the boat's going to sink. No, but is it the fastest possible boat? Is it the nicest possible boat? No, that's 2.0. That's 3.0. That's 4.0. That's the next iteration. You're proving you can execute, proving you can deliver. So do it. Just go out and get it done. And again, surround yourself with people that don't just say that's awesome. Don't just say that's great. People that challenge you. And then one of the things that I tell people is get lost. I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in get lost every week, every day for half an hour, whatever works for you, and find a subject, read something that will set your mind to think about other options and other ways of looking at things, which will in the end come back and help you in what you do on a day-to-day basis. So those are all the things that, again, I repeat that to myself, right? And sometimes you fall short of the mark. Is define who your buyer is versus just who the user is.
Right.
In our case, we failed. We knew who our user was, but our buyer was not there. Our buyer didn't care. For our buyers, existing solutions were good enough, right? Oh God, now what? Right? We got lucky. We never went.
I don't think what you have is luck. I think it's pure drive. But I appreciate you being humble.
And sometimes you gotta quit. Sometimes you gotta say, look, I've given it my all, and it's okay. Failing at something doesn't mean you are a failure. It just means, did you really try? Did you really talk? Did you really push? And it didn't work. It didn't work. Think electric cars, the turn of the century, right? It's back again. Those that started 100 years ago tried. Didn't work.
I thank you so much for your time today. It's these kind of forever pieces of advice that are going to echo through, and I think starting with a solid base is really what a lot of people need. So thank you so much for lending your advice.
Joel, thank you for the opportunity, and good luck, everyone.